What is up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to Beyond Borders. Today we are heading into the final installment, part 3 of the animated history of Poland.
And we're very excited to see how Poland rebuilt itself after being wiped off the map for 123 years.
Well, I wouldn't say that it has rebuilt itself yet, because at this stage they have just ended World War II and we are going into the Cold War. So let's have a look and see what happens.
Poland's post-1945 state was one that was pretty unrecognizable from anything that came before it. The most glaring detail was the new republic's borders. The Soviet Union forcibly annexed the eastern half of the nation they had originally invaded in September of 1939. In compensation for this, they awarded Poland the territories of Silesia, Pomerania, and Prussia from Germany. Multiples of millions of Poles and Germans were forcibly expelled from their respective homes, in the largest ethnic redistribution in history. After the war, the infamous Nuremberg trials tried the Nazi leaders for the Holocaust and war crimes committed on Polish soil.
Do you know what the Nuremberg trials were?
No.
So after World War II, they basically put all the Nazi Germans who were involved in basically the killing of Jews and putting in the regime in Germany, basically that went to war and killed millions of Jews, I think it was, around the world. And they basically put them on trial and then sentenced them to death or basically to jail for the rest of their lives. A lot of Germans, I believe, escaped to Germany, they escaped to Argentina from Germany in the hopes to escape like the punishment and all that. And there's a theory that Hitler wasn't killed because they never found his body, and that he also escaped on a boat or plane.
It's a conspiracy.
It's a conspiracy. Let us know what you think in the comments down below. Do you think it was true, or do you think that they did actually kill him at the end of World War II?
The Soviets escaped similar trials for their own war crimes since they joined the Allies in the late stages of the war. The Soviet regime would never answer for the Katyn massacre of 22,000 Polish officers, the deportation of 1.6 million POWs to Stalin's gulags, or the rape and pillage committed by the Red Army.
That's crazy. So the USSR, Russia, joined at a later stage of the war, and because of that, they done away with...
Yeah, they've basically forgiven
for all the crimes that they committed.
Poland remained behind the Iron Curtain as a puppet state for the Soviet Union. The Soviet regime set up the...
You know what the Iron Curtain is?
Yes.
Separation between East and West.
Polish United Workers' Party, a communist party creating what we now call the Polish People's Republic, an important Eastern Bloc member and buffer state to the west. The Warsaw Pact, signed in 1955 as an opposition to NATO, gave the Bolsheviks greater control over Poland's army. The government of pre-war Poland remained in exile in the UK and was refused to be recognized by Stalin. The Cold War loomed as both East and West became nuclear powers. The Western Allies secretly began talks of starting a third war to defeat the Soviet Union called Operation Unthinkable. However, this was abandoned as nuclear bombs changed the nature of war completely.
So this is why Poland is seen as an Eastern Bloc country, because they almost were taken over under control of the Russians, the USSR. And this whole time period is just after they've dropped the first atomic bomb in Japan. So we just watched Oppenheimer a couple of days ago. So it's cool to see the similarities and the differences in like the history and how it's played out. At the end of the movie, basically, they thought that the Russians were spying on the Americans, and that's why they also wanted to also develop an atomic bomb. And that's why the Cold War, from what I understand, was part of an arms race and the potential start of World War III, which never happened. There's many close encounters that nearly happened.
The first few years were the most brutal. Land, industry, and infrastructure were seized by the government, and rather than wealth distribution and prosperity, the resulting brand of socialism simply created a method of resource and value extraction to the Soviet Union. This was called the Stalinist era, an era characterized by untold poverty. In true Iron Curtain fashion, Poland stood close to the front lines of a clash of ideology. The student strike in 1968 against the regime was brutally suppressed. This decade would also see what remained of Poland's Jewish population immigrate en masse to Israel, ending the Jewish chapter in Polish history. By 1970, the port cities of Gdańsk, Gdynia, and Szczecin exploded in protests as these areas were subject to particularly harsh working and living conditions. The government would crack down and protests would continue in 1976 and again in 1980, by which point the government was $20 billion in debt. Lech Wałęsa started the first workers' union called Solidarity, quickly becoming a political lobbyist group for change. Solidarity organized the first nationwide workers' strike in 1981. The government tried in vain to enact martial law to stop the spread of chaos. However, the winds of change were upon the Eastern Bloc, and in the 1989 election the Communists lost nearly all of the allowable contested seats in parliament. The wheel began turning and change was inevitable.
This is now basically the fall of the Berlin Wall, the end of the Cold War, and this is basically where I believe Poland gains its independence, and this is where change really starts to happen. And from this date onwards is basically where Poland has now started to build and
into what it is today.
So that's 23 years that they've been building.
It's just incredible to see like how much they've actually been through as a country. Like I keep on saying it, but every time you think the worst has happened, like something else happened in their history, and it's just...
Hopefully they don't get roped into another war.
No, I don't think they will.
The Communist Party was disbanded, the constitution amended, and the centralized control of the economy was abolished. The government in exile was finally allowed to return home. Since then, things have changed pretty drastically.
They were in exile for like 30 years. Well, I think more than 30 years. And I think that they said they were in the UK. So they basically, I wonder what they did there for 30 years.
No, it's mind-blowing actually.
In 1999, the Third Polish Republic officially joined NATO, signaling a huge westward shift in foreign policy. By 2004, they became part of the European Union, helping stabilize the growing economy. It has been a very long and hard road for Poland. The very center of World War II tensions in Poland had left the nation in rubble, only to be then absorbed into the oppressive regime of Stalin's communist bloc. A common observation made by no less than Winston Churchill is that while the war had brought an end to totalitarianism and tyranny in Western Europe, in Eastern Europe, it had really only just begun. And sometimes it's important to remember that. Poland's post-communist prosperity has made it one of the Eastern Bloc's success stories. And who knows, maybe one day, Poland can into space. Thank you for watching this short conclusion to the story of Poland. Like and subscribe.
If there's anything that this 3-part series has shown and highlighted, it's been even more evident on how the history of Poland has unfolded and basically the dark, very, very hard road that it is basically been on for hundreds of years. And it's like we've said in previous videos, we didn't learn this stuff in school when we were in South Africa, so it's definitely interesting to see and to get a bit of context into why certain cultures have evolved and why certain people have different views of the world, and it's definitely helped us, I think, in that understanding and creating that awareness. It's awesome to see. I don't know.
Absolutely. And also just, I keep on saying this as well. How resilient as a country do you have to be to keep on fighting for your country?
Yep.
Keep on rebuilding it, no matter how many people come and try and take it, how many people come and try and destroy it. You rebuild it, you are even better than you were before. So it's really like Poland has really been a very big inspiration.
I think the cool thing is now that they have had basically the chains off them for the past 30 years, they have exploded. And that's why everyone is talking about Poland and an up and coming rising superpower like across the world. So very cool things coming out of Poland. I think it's a great country. We haven't explored it enough. We are going to be exploring it in the new year. We are busy planning that trip at the moment. So if you have any recommendations of cities or places of history and of significance, please drop it down in the comments down below. If you enjoyed this video, please like it and subscribe to our channel. This is
Beyond Borders.
Over and Out.